2023 was, to say the least, an interesting year for video games. While some of the greatest games of all time released last year, the industry felt like it was collapsing in on itself. Last year saw mass layoffs across all sectors of the gaming industry, impacting at least 10,500 people. I made a video last December discussing the layoffs in more detail, and I'll leave it linked in the description for those who are interested. In this video, I want to focus on the positives of the year, discuss my favorite games of 2023, and the ones that I'm most looking forward to in 2024. 2023 was chock full of high-profile releases, with what felt like a new Game of the Year contender being released almost every week. As a result, there were many games from last year that I have not been able to play. Here are the 5 I'm most excited to try out. First up, we've got Armored Core 6. I've never played an Armored Core game before, but I'm quite interested to try out a non-Souls game by From Software, and from everything I've seen online, it looks like an absolute blast. Next up, we've got 2023 Best Indie Game nominee Dave the Diver. Aside from the controversy about whether or not it classifies as an indie game, it does not. I've heard nothing but good things about Dave the Diver, and it seems right up my alley. The Yakuza Like a Dragon franchise has been on my radar for a few years now, and while they seem like the type of game I would really enjoy, I am just so intimidated by how many games there are in the series and how long each one is. However, it seems like a Dragon Ishin is a good entry point to the series since it's a spin-off and isn't connected story-wise to the other main series games. Also, a samurai with a gun is just cool. Next up on the list is Octopath Traveler 2. While I've never played Octopath Traveler aside from the demo, I've always been in awe of its gorgeous art style and soundtrack, and I'm intrigued by the concept of 8 stories intertwining into one. I love turn-based RPGs, and from what I've heard online, it seems that a lot of issues people had with the first game have been fixed, so I'm definitely excited to try it out. And the last game on my list is likely the biggest gaming surprise of 2023, Hi-Fi Rush. I love rhythm games, and I absolutely adore this game's Saturday morning cartoon aesthetic. And aside from the fact that this game was both announced and released on the exact same day, it was also an incredible surprise that Tango Gameworks, best known for the Evil Within series, pulled off such a different game to the level of success that they did. Another game that I just can't wait to try. 2024 is already off to a good start for releases, with Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth, and Tekken 8 all garnering glowing reviews. And the slate of games set to come out this year is already stacking up. So I wanted to take a moment to talk a bit about 5 games set to release in 2024 that I'm most excited for, in no particular order. First up, we've got Dragon's Dogma 2, the sequel to a game that I haven't played. From what I've seen so far, this game is shaping up to just be incredible. The world is stunning and I just can't wait to explore it. The combat looks really deep and engaging, and the pawn system looks like it will just add an extra layer of customization on top. Plus, Capcom has just been killing it lately, and everything of theirs that I've played has been an absolute blast, so I can't wait to try out Dragon's Dogma 2. This next one is technically a 2-for-1 because I wanted to just mention how excited I am for Persona 3 Reload, but the next game on the list is another one from Atlus, Metaphor ReFantazio. Refantazio. It doesn't really roll off the tongue. Anyway, while I'm not a big fan of the name, I am really excited to see what the Persona team does with a game set in a fantasy world. The plot that they have set up so far with a tournament for the throne is such a cool concept, especially in their hands. I'm also curious to see how deep the blend of turn-based and action combat goes. Absolutely a day one purchase. The next game on my most anticipated list is The Plucky Squire. It's an action-adventure game being developed by a new studio led by the former art director of the Pokemon game, and it seems to draw inspiration from games like Super Mario Odyssey, one of my personal favorites of all time. From what we've seen so far, the game just has an irresistible charm. It blends 2D and 3D elements with a plethora of different gameplay scenarios shown off. This game is absolutely one to watch, and I hope that when we look back on 2024, it will be seen as a standout title. I am nowhere near the world's biggest Star Wars fan. I've only watched the original and the prequel trilogies, and that's where my knowledge of this universe stops. But what I've seen so far of Star Wars Outlaws has me cautiously excited. The premise is incredibly promising, being able to play as a scoundrel trying to pull off one last job to gain her freedom, and the possibilities of an open world in the Star Wars universe are endless. My caution comes from the fact that in recent years, I have not enjoyed the games released by its publisher Ubisoft. Also, owing to the fact that the studio behind this game, Massive Entertainment, just released Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora last December, I'm not completely confident that Star Wars Outlaws will even release this year. I am genuinely hoping for the best for this game because I really want to enjoy it, but for now I need to wait to see more. I said that this most anticipated list was in no particular order, but number 1 is definitely my number 1. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is my most anticipated game of 2024, and it's very easy to see why. It's the second installment in the trilogy reimagining the original Final Fantasy VII. I absolutely love Remake. I think the combat in that game is the perfect blend of action combat with strategic turn-based combat. Rebirth just looks absolutely stunning. There seems to be so much to do. As someone that doesn't know the story of the original Final Fantasy VII, but who knows some specific plot beats, I am so interested to see where Square Enix goes with it. February 29th can't come soon enough. Before we move on to my top 10 games of the year, here are a few quick honorable mentions. I've never been the biggest fan of 2D Mario, but I really enjoyed Super Mario Bros. Wonder. The game was full of moments that just made me smile, and I had a blast the entire time. Citizen Sleeper originally released in 2022, but it only released on PlayStation in 2023, and that's where I played it, so I'm including it here. This game is genuinely one of the best written pieces of media that I have ever experienced, with incredibly deep world building and a soundtrack that elevates the entire game to just another level. Coral Island is a game that I backed on Kickstarter about 3 years ago. While I haven't played as much of it as I'd like to, the developers definitely understand what makes farming sims enjoyable, and I really like what I've played so far. The 1996 version of Super Mario RPG is a game that was always on my list of games that I needed to play someday. So when Nintendo announced a faithful remake of the game, I was very excited to finally get the chance. The game didn't blow me away or anything, but it was just a charming and really fun RPG that didn't overstay its welcome, and I would definitely recommend this for first-time RPG players. When God of War Ragnarok Valhalla was announced at the Game Awards to not only be out in a week, but to also be free, I absolutely lost it. Even with that excitement, I did not expect it to be as beefy of an expansion as it was. This DLC combines the superb combat of God of War with an extremely satisfying loop, all contextualized within a story that does an excellent job of not only wrapping up the Norse saga of God of War, but Kratos' entire journey up to this point. It's just incredible. With that all out of the way, let's get into my top 10 games of 2023. What do you get when you combine Lovecraftian horror with a Resident Evil style inventory management system and one of my favorite things to do in games, fishing? You get my 10th favorite game of 2023, Dredge. Dredge is an indie gem that hooked me, pun intended, with its unique gameplay mechanics, and then managed to keep me on the edge of my seat the entire way through. The combination of the game's art style, sound design, and Lovecraftian narrative made the experience of playing it incredibly tense. Dredge's gameplay is simple but engaging. You play as the new angler for the coastal town of Greater Marrow, and as a result, the bulk of your playtime will be spent sailing around in your boat, catching fish from different spots, and selling these fish in order to upgrade your boat and repeat the process. The fishing minigames are simple but engaging and varied enough that each time I caught a fish, it felt rewarding. The boat upgrade system served as a really satisfying progression mechanic and kept me invested not only in finding resources to improve my boat, but also in being cautious to avoid unnecessary repairs. The inventory management system added a layer of strategy to the game that really elevated it for me. As I mentioned earlier, it's very much in the style of a Resident Evil game's inventory, where you have to move and rotate objects on a grid to get everything to fit into your inventory. What makes Dredge's version of this feel unique is that it's not only just fish you catch or materials you pick up that have to be slotted in, but also your equipment. There are specific tiles that your engine, lights, rods, and nets can only be placed in, meaning that you have to work around them while trying to slot in other things into your inventory. This meant deciding whether to use a smaller engine to be able to carry more per trip, or taking only one fishing rod instead of two, meaning I could catch less different types of fish. I also really appreciated that time only passed in game when my boat was moving or I was fishing, so that I could sit and think about how to rearrange my inventory, which made it genuinely fun for me instead of being a stressful experience. I'm not sure if only I felt this, but the overall atmosphere of Dredge, particularly its surreal art design, reminded me so much of the Rusty Lake games. The art direction in this game added so much to the overall feeling of unease I had while playing. The Lovecraftian elements woven into the narrative amplified the unsettling atmosphere, especially when it was hard to tell what was lurking beneath the surface of murky waters. Traveling around at night was incredibly tense, and as the insanity meter would build up, phantom objects would appear in front of my ship almost out of nowhere, causing for some inopportune damage damage to my ship on multiple occasions. These elements work so well together to create a world that is fascinating, hair-raising, and at times terrifying to explore. Speaking of terrifying, what I think truly sets Dredge apart is its masterful use of sound to build tension. The absence of music, replaced only by the sloshing of my boat on the water, made fishing extremely tense at times. Horror games have made me afraid before, but this is one of the few that I've played that genuinely gave me goosebumps. The sound design creates a chilling atmosphere, heightening the suspense of traveling through the waters, especially at night. In a year of incredible indie games, Dredge stands out as one of the best. It pulls you in close with its incredibly engaging gameplay and expertly ramps up the tension to create a truly hair-raising experience. This game is a true testament to indie game developers' ability to craft unique experiences that leave a lasting impression. When I was younger, as a kid who only really played Pokemon and Mario games, loading up Super Smash Bros. Brawl for the first time was a truly eye-opening experience to how wide the world of games truly was. Who the heck was Snake? What on earth is a Meta Knight? I know many people online can relate to this, but Smash exposed me to the existence of franchises I'd never even heard of, like Mother, Fire Emblem, and in particular, the adventures of a little astronaut and his seedling friends. Number 9 is Pikmin 4. Unlike longtime Pikmin fans, by virtue of Pikmin 4 being the first game in the series that I've played, I did not suffer the arduous 10-year wait for this game. After finally playing it though, I can definitely understand how painful of a wait that must have been. Pikmin 4 is an absolute blast. I've genuinely been struggling to put how I feel about this game into words because the fact of the matter is that this game is just pure fun. Shigeru Miyamoto described the gameplay of Pikmin 4 using the Japanese word dandori, which roughly translates to planning or arranging, and he explained it as strategically planning, deploying, and commanding the Pikmin. After playing almost 30 hours of Pikmin 4, leading my multicolored troop of Pikmin through a variety of different scenarios, I can say this game encapsulates the mantra of Dandori perfectly. The world and characters of Pikmin 4 are so full of charm. The game takes place on the planet PNF 404, where Captain Olimar has crash landed. The Rescue Corps receives his emergency signal and sends a team to the planet to rescue him. However, they also crash land, leaving you, the newest recruit, to travel to PNF 404 by yourself to try and find and save all of them. The unique blend of strategy and real-time action in Pikmin 4 instantly drew me in and was easy to understand. Commanding a multicolored legion of Pikmin to solve puzzles, navigate the terrain, and defeat enemy creatures was at times challenging, but always incredibly satisfying. Following the Dandori mantra, the game required me to assess the situation, plan my moves, and execute on them to succeed. Whether it was using the strengths of different Pikmin or strategically dividing tasks among them, I was constantly engaged. Speaking of the Pikmin themselves, the diverse range of Pikmin added an extra layer of strategy to the game. For example, red Pikmin are fire resistant, yellow Pikmin are shock resistant and can be thrown farther, ice Pikmin can freeze bodies of water, creating surfaces to walk across, and experimenting with different combinations of Pikmin help to overcome different obstacles. The strategy elements of this game extend to managing the Pikmin population, ensuring a balance between offensive and defensive Pikmin, as well as those with specific utilities. The night missions were fun tower defense missions that added nice variety between the day expeditions. Pikmin 4's level designs felt so incredibly well crafted. From grassy areas and sandy beaches to treacherous caves and underground dungeons, each area had a unique challenges and puzzles to experience. The game looks gorgeous and the art style is vibrant and full of life, with many varied environments and different creatures roaming around. The game's story was not complex but was full of heart. It made me feel connected to the Pikmin and the other characters, motivating me to keep playing to see how the story would unfold. By the end, I was surprised by how invested I was in the outcome, but a game doesn't need an intricate plot for it to be compelling. What truly made this game stand out for me was how addicting playing it was. The gameplay loop was so engaging that I found myself compelled to 100% every level. The combination of resource management, puzzle solving, and exploration made each level a joy to play. The sense of accomplishment after successfully completing a dungeon or collecting all the objects in an area was so gratifying. Pikmin 4 has that magical quality that kept me coming back for more again and again, and before I knew it, I'd spent hours playing all into the night. In all honesty, from years of expectations about how good Pikmin 4 would be, I was skeptical that it would live up to the hype, but it exceeded my expectations, offering a gameplay experience that was really truly just fun. The satisfaction of the gameplay loop made me want 100% every level, and made Pikmin 4 a thoroughly enjoyable gaming experience. Throughout history, art has played a vital role in the exchange of cultures and traditions. Music in particular has served as a powerful medium through which stories and perspectives can be shared, transcending geographical boundaries and language barriers. However, with music, the listener's involvement only goes as far as singing or playing along. Video games, on the other hand, have the unique ability to immerse players in interactive experiences that go beyond passive consumption and experience them at their own pace and in their own way. Number 8 on my list is a game which allowed me to experience the culture of a country that I will shamefully admit I'd never even heard of before. Chia is the newest game from indie studio Awaseb, and playing it was an absolutely joyful experience. While set in a fictional archipelago, it is heavily inspired by the Pacific island nation of New Caledonia, where the studio's founders grew up. While I've never been to New Caledonia myself, from the moment I started up the game, it was easy to see how much love, care, and authenticity the developers put into this game, and it absolutely works. Chia is the story of a young girl of the same name who goes on an adventure to save her father after he is kidnapped. However, she has the ability to soul jump, enabling her to possess both animals and inanimate objects, each of which has its own unique ability. There are clear inspirations here from games like The Wind Waker and Super Mario Odyssey, and the game blends these well. The world of Chia was an absolute joy to explore, with several different islands to visit. Chia has a glider that she can use to float through the air, as well as the ability to climb up and spring jump off of trees, and a boat to traverse through the water. I love that the map didn't tell me where I was in relation to other points of interest, allowing me to just explore without trying to speed from location to location. But the real star is the soul jumping mechanic, adding so much variety to the gameplay. I was able to transform into a bird and fly to high up places, or a fish to quickly swim through the water without worrying about running out of air, and my personal favorite, turning into a rock, rolling down a hill, and launching myself into the air, jumping out of the rock and back into it and launching myself even further. Chia's narrative actually surprised me with its depth and maturity. I went in expecting a more light-hearted story, and while the game is full of charm, it delved into some deeper topics and definitely resonated with me. The fact that all the characters were voiced in the native languages of New Caledonia greatly helped to immerse me into the game world. Family and community played key roles in the narrative, adding to the theme of connections and a shared history. After some time, Chia's journey intertwines with the stories of other characters, and her actions affect the lives of those people. I love the feeling of interconnectedness between all the characters as they all unite in their struggle and work towards a resolution together. The story is truly heartwarming and one of my favorites of last year. And then, perfectly complementing the game is the beautiful soundtrack by John Robert Matz, influenced by traditional sounds and performed by local artists and choirs. I absolutely adore the music in this game and have been listening to it relatively often since finishing it. At certain moments in the story, there are musical numbers you can play along to on Chia's ukulele, or if you prefer to just enjoy the music, you can let the game play them for you. In these particular moments, I felt the passion for New Caledonian culture oozing through my screen, and it was an absolute joy. The music enhanced the emotional impact of story moments. I was an overall sensory feast. Even if you don't ever play Chia, which you should, it's not that long, like 15 hours, do yourself a favor and listen to the soundtrack. You will be happy you did. Chia is an excellent illustration of something that only games are capable of, and it immersed me into a culture that I had never experienced or even heard of before, all the while making me an active participant in it. This game is a beautiful love letter to the country of New Caledonia, and a definite recommendation to anyone with an interest in its culture or open world games in general. I like to give a little bit of a lead up to build some suspense before I say what each game is, but some games just need no introduction. The original RE4 is widely regarded as one of the greatest games of all time, but I'm not gonna lie, I tried it out very briefly and could not get used to the controls. I definitely plan to give it another shot someday. Luckily, Capcom did an excellent job remaking it with modern third-person shooter controls, and Resident Evil Remake was an absolute blast to play through. I love the setting of RE4 and the sense of exploration it offers. Every location from the villages to the imposing castle and beyond. I love searching every nook and cranny to uncover hidden treasures. The areas just flow seamlessly, and the world is incredibly well interconnected, which enhanced the immersion of this game. The puzzles strike a perfect perfect balance between challenge and satisfaction, and require me to use my brain to progress through the story. They offered a nice addition to the overall survival horror experience, giving me time to think about what horrors could possibly be coming next, and added a nice variety to the pacing of the game. The combat in RE4 is the shining star of the game. I think it might genuinely be the best third-person action combat that I've experienced. Fights are strategic and intense, and combined with the satisfying feedback from each weapon, it just creates a sense of empowerment despite the constant threat of unknown looming over Leon's head. I also love that the gameplay change from RE2 Remake shows the training he's been through between the two games, since now he can roundhouse kick the heads off of everybody. Every encounter with the grotesque creatures was memorable and adrenaline fueled, and the opening sequence in the village is one of my favorite moments from any game that I played last year, or in general. I love the narrative of this game even more so than the story of RE2 Remake. It's still campy and silly and full of quips, but the unfolding story of Leon's mission to rescue the president's daughter is just filled with twists and turns and the constant sense of impending doom. I love how the game blends horror and action elements, and it kept me invested in the characters and the evolving plot. The president's daughter adds an interesting dynamic to the gameplay. I usually find escort missions tedious, but I think Ashley's presence forced me to consider my actions more carefully, since I had her life to think about as well as my own. This added an extra layer of tension to the overall experience while not being unfairly difficult or annoying. Instead of being a drag, the escort missions actually enhanced the survival horror aspects of the game. And a short note, but I absolutely loved the Separate Ways DLC and how it gave a different perspective of the same events of the game. Playing as Ada offered new insights into the story, and being able to zip around with her grapple gun was a nice contrast to Leon's more grounded gameplay. I loved Luis's arc in the base game, but being able to see what he was doing when he wasn't on screen made me love his character even more. The base game was already incredibly replayable, but the DLC adds even more on top of that just made the narrative even better for me. RE4 Remake successfully modernizes a classic, and it was an excellent experience to play through. The combination of exploration, puzzles, combat, and a compelling story come together to form a roller coaster ride of a game that I was happy to ride again and again. Number 6 on my list is probably the most divisive game on here, Final Fantasy 16. I know that this game was not what a lot of people online were hoping it would be, but I was absolutely captivated by the story, and for the most part enjoyed the gameplay. The exploration of FF16 was a highlight for me. I love traveling through so many diverse landscapes, and the environments all felt so intricately designed. This game is chock full of breathtaking views, and the attention to detail in the world building, especially in the towns and dungeons, elevated the experience for me. Some people might find the side quests tedious, and there were definitely a few that went on for a bit too long, but I love the depth that they added to the lore of the game, and how they led to some really cool story moments. I really appreciate the care and commitment that went into weaving so many intriguing side narratives, and it really enhanced the overall world building of the game, making me care more about the people and the future of Valistia on a whole. The combat in Final Fantasy 16 is dynamic and engaging. I loved being able to mix and match iconic abilities and the different combos that I could pull off. Combat encounters felt tense, and I felt like I had to really master the mechanics. I do definitely understand those that wish the game had more RPG elements, and I definitely would have appreciated some more customization. But I was really happy with what was there. However, the real star of the show are the insane icon fights. They were just epic encounters with huge and powerful creatures, and were such a spectacle to play. Overall, I thought the combination of intense action combat sequences as Clive, combined with the crazy and stunning set pieces of the icon battles, made the game so memorable. The story was the real highlight though for me, keeping me hooked in from the start right up to the very end. FF16 weaves such a complex narrative full of political intrigue, personal struggles, and magical elements, twists and turns that I didn't see coming, coupled with such well-developed characters that added so much emotional depth to the overarching storyline. The protagonist Clive undergoes a captivating journey of self-discovery and vengeance, and it made the narrative even more compelling. I laughed and I cried, and I was just so invested right the way through. Speaking of Clive, he's just such an incredible character. His growth throughout the game, not only from a soldier to a leader, but also his acceptance of who he was and his actions in the past, were just such an incredible transformation to witness. That, along with the complexity of his relationships with the incredible supporting cast and a phenomenal performance by Ben Starr, made him so endearing. His journey adds a personal touch to the overarching narrative and enhanced the emotional impact of the story. Finally, this soundtrack deserves special mention. The music in this game is a masterpiece that complements the game's atmosphere and emotional beats perfectly. From intense battle themes like Away to emotional character themes like Priceless, the soundtrack enhances the experience of FF16 to another level. Despite the division over the game online, FF16 left a lasting impression on me. I loved exploring Valistia, the combat was engaging and fun, the icon fights were spectacular, and the story was so compelling, and combined it just formed a gaming experience that resonates with me and has not left my mind to this day. A few years ago, I saw online that a Korean studio was making a Souls-like game based on the story of Pinocchio. And when I saw that headline, I thought to myself, there is no way in hell that that works. When I finally watched a trailer for the game, I was a bit more intrigued, but still wary about the level to which NeoWiz and Round 8 Studio could pull it off. Lies of P absolutely pulls it off. First of all, the elephant in the room, Lies of P is the Bloodborne 2 we never got, but the clear inspirations don't stop it from being an absolutely incredible game in its own right. The art style is definitely the most evident inspiration from Bloodborne, but it's the best implementation aside from that game that I've seen. It strikes a perfect balance between dark and whimsical. The designs of characters and environments were unique, and the visual storytelling throughout the game was exceptional. The city of Krat is dark and twisted and was so well crafted and intriguing to explore. I loved looking through every nook and cranny, discovering bits of lore and hidden secrets. Hotel Krat, the central hub of the game, was one of my favorite in-game locations of last year. It served not only as a place to rest, replenish resources, and upgrade gear, but also as a center point for the narrative. The attention to detail and the ambient storytelling in the hotel added so much depth to the overall experience. The soundtrack was phenomenal in Lies of P, but especially the collectible records that can be played at the gramophone in Hotel Krat. The ambient music in the game sets the tone of the game perfectly, but the records add such a welcome layer of immersion. It's a small but significant detail that enhances the overall atmosphere of the game, while showing the developers' dedication to the project. The combat in Lies of P is excellent. It's tough but incredibly engaging, demanding precision and skill. It's a dance, and the satisfaction of a well-executed parry followed by a devastating counter-attack is just unparalleled. The progression system in the game further enhances the overall experience. The P organ skill tree and the weapon customization with handles and blades allows for so much customization and player choice, and creates just a personalized playstyle. Experimenting with different combinations added a strategic element to the gameplay and always kept it fresh and exciting. The story, a reimagining of the classic tale of Pinocchio, was really well done, and the game system felt perfectly suited to the lore of the world. The narrative unfolds organically, revealing new layers and twists as you progress. Just another testament to the developer's creativity and dedication to adapting a familiar story into a dark and captivating gaming experience that I immediately started over again. Lies of P stands in my opinion as the best Souls-like game to date, while being a unique and unforgettable experience that stands tall in its own right. At the start of 2023, if you had told me that this game would not be my game of the year, I would have called you crazy. But because of how many incredible games released in 2023, the number 4 spot on my list goes to Tears of the Kingdom. I previously spoke at length about how much I love The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom in a video that I released last year. I'll leave it linked in the description for anyone who wants to hear my more detailed thoughts on the game. The long and short of it, however, is that this game takes Breath of the Wild, one of my all-time favorites, and improves on it in so many ways. The 4 main mechanics in Tears of the Kingdom, Fuse and Ultra Hand in particular, were incredible tools that allowed for so much freedom, experimentation, and player agency. The Recall and Ascend abilities added great utility for exploration and puzzle solving. Being able to create pretty much anything you could imagine with Ultra Hand, and the fact that it would function just by being stuck together, is an insane technical feat that should not be understated. While I personally didn't have a problem with weapon durability in the first place, the Fuse ability didn't exactly fix the problem that people had with the system. It did, however, offer a very nice layer of customization to what kinds of weapons and elemental attacks you may want to use. The dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom felt like a marginal improvement over the Divine Beasts. Each felt like its own unique location to explore with different puzzles to solve instead of just activating a pedestal, but I found that I enjoyed the journey to get to the dungeons more so than the dungeons themselves. The boss fights were a standout for me, and each one felt better suited to their respective dungeons than the Blights did in Breath of the Wild. However, the Sages, aside from Tulin, felt like a major letdown, as they didn't offer powers that were valuable, like Mipha's Grace or Daruk's Protection, while also being incredibly incredibly clunky to use. Tears of the Kingdom's world map is absolutely massive. While the overworld of Hyrule has been changed slightly due to the passage of time between the two games, the size of the world has been almost tripled with the addition of Sky Islands above and the pitch black depths below. I love that the Sky Islands were less focused on exploration and more on puzzles and combat trails. It felt like a refreshing change of pace from the other two vast maps that you had to explore. Speaking of exploring, the depths were one of the coolest gaming experiences that I had this year. The fact that they were kept completely secret up to launch is crazy enough in itself, and on top of that the depths are completely pitch black and a mirror image of the map of Hyrule, meaning that mountains in Hyrule were deep pits in the depths and vice versa. Having to light up areas manually while also avoiding the gloom that can do some serious damage made the depths really tense and fun to explore. In the overworld of Hyrule, stables felt like a hub for activity and I loved hanging out in them. The pony point system added a nice sense of progression, and both the stable trotters and newspaper questlines were two of my favorites in the game. Tears of the Kingdom takes place about 5 years after the events of Breath of the Wild, but its links, see what I did there, to the first game are almost non-existent. Most of the Sheikah technology from Breath of the Wild is gone, the 4 massive divine beasts and all the guardians have disappeared, and some people have even forgotten who Link is. I absolutely love the story in this game. It's told through pretty much the same methods as in Breath of the Wild, so I definitely recommend looking up a map of which order to interact with the story in. The journey that the characters in this game go on is heartbreaking and heroic, and the way it all culminates is just incredibly done. My biggest negative with Tears of the Kingdom is the angering absence of my favorite character from Breath of the Wild, Cass. In my Tears of the Kingdom video, I said, "Of course, if he's in the DLC that Tears of the Kingdom is obviously gonna get, I will be a bit less upset." Well, since that video released, it has been confirmed that Tears of the Kingdom will not be getting a DLC, so now I have every right to be pissed off that they just omitted Cass. Do better, Nintendo. That one negative aside, Tears of the Kingdom is an absolutely incredible game that somehow lived up to and surpassed the expectations I had of it as a sequel to one of my favorite games of all time. The freedom the game gives you to experiment with physics and solve problems how you want to solve them is unreal, the music is phenomenal, and overall I just absolutely adore this game. When trying to order this list, I had the most trouble by far placing number 4 and number 3 because of how much I love them both, but after some careful consideration, and by that I mean flipping a coin, I finally decided to put Tears of the Kingdom at number 4. What's number 3, you ask? If I had to describe Baldur's Gate 3 in one word, it would be immense. It is an emotional, intellectual, and artistic behemoth of a game that has had me completely enthralled since the moment I first loaded up the character creator. For someone like me who is brand new to both CRPGs and Dungeons & Dragons, it could have easily been a daunting experience, a labyrinth of bad dice rolls and complex lore, but instead I felt like I was being welcomed in with open arms and given the ability to paint my own chaotic masterpiece of a tale on its sprawling canvas. But there were definitely a lot of bad dice rolls. The world itself is a tapestry, both beautiful and grotesque, from the lush plant life of Emerald Grove to the fetid underbelly of the Blighted Village and the Underdark. Each location felt alive and brimming with stories just waiting to be unearthed. I could spend ages just admiring the gorgeous vistas of the mountain pass. Then there are the dungeons, which were gauntlets requiring strategy and most of all good luck. The beating heart of Baldur's Gate 3 lies not only in its landscapes and locations, but in the people. The characters of this game, from party members to random NPCs, all feel so intentionally written and not at all out of place. The companions in particular are more than just quest givers or stat sheets to fill out. They're living, breathing individuals who all have dreams, fears, and desires that intertwine with the players. From Shadowheart's struggle with faith and self-loathing, to Lae'zel's unwavering determination to reclaim Githyanki glory at any cost, to Karlach's literal life or death situation. These are stories that unfold not only through scripted dialogue, but through their body language and the way they react to your choice and the changing world around them. I wasn't just playing alongside them, I forged bonds with these characters that I will remember for years to come. Then there's the music. Oh sweet lord, the music. Borislav Slavov's soundtrack is a symphony of sorrow and wonder. Down by the River is an ethereal and mystifying melody that made my hours spent in character creation flow by like nothing. Each instrument feels like a voice weaving a tale of loss and resilience, all echoing through the gorgeous vocal performance. Every track in Baldur's Gate 3 perfectly captures the essence of its subject, enriching the narrative to an even greater height. What truly elevates Baldur's Gate 3 to masterpiece status for me is the sheer depth of player choice. This isn't a game where you simply are railroaded along a predetermined path. Every decision, from the seemingly mundane to the world-altering, resonates throughout the narrative. Did you spare the goblin camp or unleash your fury upon them? Will you embrace your parasitic tadpole or fight its manipulative whispers? Every choice paints your character in a different light, shaping not only the perception of you in the eyes of other characters, but the experience of your personal Baldur's Gate journey. As both a CRPG and D&D newbie, I wasn't just encouraged to experiment, I was empowered to do so. The tutorial is a hand-holding exercise, it's a playground for player agency, teaching the intricacies of the game's system without smothering the joy of personal discovery. There were times where I botched a roll, made a bad decision, or wandered into a fight completely underleveled. But instead of feeling frustration, I felt exhilaration, and then of course, I reloaded my most recent save and tried again. Sorry guys, I am a save scummer and I am proud of it. Baldur's Gate 3 is so much more than a game. It's an enchanting experience. A world begging to be explored, characters yearning to be heard, and a story aching to not be told, but shaped by the player. I've not beaten Baldur's Gate 3, but my 2 concurrent playthroughs over the 70 hours I've played have been vastly different from one another. With each new discovery, my love for this game deepens, its immense size not a barrier or constraint, but an invitation to explore and tell a story of my own creation. So while it may have won 3rd place by a coin toss, the excellence of Baldur's Gate 3 cannot be overstated. It is now a permanent resident both in my heart and on my PlayStation hard drive, and a true testament to the power of deep stories, the beauty of player choice, and the magic that can happen when a world comes alive at the player's will. Number 2 is a game that I was looking forward to for a long time, and I absolutely loved it. It also helps that it was inadvertently one of the best birthday gifts I could have asked for. Yes, Sea of Stars released on my birthday, but it could have released on any day of the year and I'd love it just as much. This game is absolutely phenomenal. First and foremost, what probably immediately caught your eye, this game is a visual feast thanks to its breathtaking art style. In my humble opinion, this game perfects the look of a 2D RPG. Every location and character is so meticulously detailed, and the different enemies encountered throughout the game have such imaginative and original designs, making the world of Sea of Stars feel fantastical and alive. The enhanced 16-bit aesthetic adds a touch of nostalgia for classic RPGs, while standing as an excellent art style for a modern game in its own right. The combat in Sea of Stars expertly combines turn-based strategy with real-time elements, making every battle feel dynamic, engaging, and most of all, worthwhile. Every spell and attack within combat can be strengthened if time hits are used. For example, Girl's Nourish ability does more healing if the X button is hit at the right moment. Attacks can also be blocked to reduce damage taken by pressing the X button at the moment that enemies' attacks hit. When you hit an enemy with a basic attack, live mana drops from them. Up to 3 sets of live mana can be absorbed by one of the party members as boost charges, which change and improve their next action. The game also has a large variety of combo attacks that you unlock over time, which can be used when you have enough combo points to spend on them and can do some serious damage to enemies. As combo points are used, the ultimate meter builds up, and when full, a character can use a powerful signature move. What adds an almost puzzle-like element to the combat in Sea of Stars are the spell locks. These appear above an enemy's head while they're charging up a powerful move, and specific types of damage must be done to them before the turn counter hits 0 to break the lock and prevent them from using the move. However, enemies also take reduced damage while they have a spell lock active, preventing you from just brute forcing your way through them, or at least making it significantly more difficult to. The different types of damage include blunt damage, which both Valir and Garl's basic attacks do, solar damage, which Zale's abilities do, and venom damage, which Sarai's abilities do, among several others. Using live mana, you can boost a party member's basic attack, allowing them to do both their basic weapons damage and their elemental damage. All of these different systems combined make every battle in Sea of Stars feel meaningful, challenging, and enjoyable. No discussion about Sea of Stars would be complete without acknowledging the phenomenal soundtrack that accompanies you on your adventure. Composed mainly by Eric Brown and contributed to by the legendary Yasunori Mitsuda of Chrono Trigger fame, the music was a perfect accompaniment to the game and narrative. The tracks felt so carefully tailored to evoke specific emotions, enhance the overall atmosphere, and punctuate key story moments. From the serene melodies of the Mountain Trail and Coral Cascades to the heart-pounding battle themes like The Storm Calls for You, this soundtrack is a masterstroke that elevates the game to a whole new height of auditory supremacy. The story of Sea of Stars is just excellent. It tells a beautiful story of friendship and dedication, not just to each other but to a greater goal, and it really resonated with me. I loved how it all unfolded unfolded, weaving together elements of mystery, magic, and personal growth. The characters felt like vibrant personalities with their own stories and struggles and goals, and as the story went on, I found myself more invested in their fates and the overarching quest they were on. I can confidently say that Garl is my favorite character from any game I played last year. He is the bestest boy, and I will not tolerate any attacks against him. The writing in Sea of Stars was rich, with really charming dialogue and impeccable pacing, creating an overall narrative arc that has not left my mind since finishing the game. There are so many things in this game that I just love, so I want to rattle off a few quickly. Fishing. I love fishing in games, and Sea of Stars has really fun fishing. There's a band that plays in taverns throughout the game, and you can unlock more songs the further you progress, and they're all bardcore covers of songs from the game, which are really freaking good. Wheels. What an insanely fun mini game that I hope gets the Gwent treatment and becomes its own thing, because the only problem I had with Wheels was that I couldn't play more Wheels. 100% completing the game was not grindy, and the rewards it gives are well worth the little bit of extra time it will take. I think I'm going to stop there because sharing any more about this game would just be spoiling some of the jaw-dropping moments contained within, and I want anyone interested to have the same incredible experience that I had. Sea of Stars is such a beautiful game in every way, from its art style and music to its story to its combat. This game is just such a joy to play. Embarking on this celestial odyssey was an experience that I will never forget, and I will happily experience again. Sabotage Studio has knocked it out of the park with this enchanting, emotional, and wonderful masterpiece of a game. Now, on to my favorite game of 2023. This past year was an interesting one. I actually gave myself a goal at the start of 2023 to release at least one YouTube video per month. And as a result of my procrastination, I did not achieve that goal. But I'm going to be honest with you, procrastination isn't the only problem I'm having. I know enough to edit a competent video together, but my main issue comes at finding inspiration for what to write about, and even then, being able to write about it competently. I think what I'm trying to say is, I've been experiencing a bit of writer's block. So last October, I took a trip to the town of Bright Falls, Washington to try and find inspiration. My game of the year is Alan Wake 2. Alan Wake 2 is so much more than a game. It's an experience, and nothing like I've ever experienced before. You begin the game not as Alan Wake, but as Saga Anderson, an FBI agent who, along with her partner Alex Casey, comes to the small town of Bright Falls, Washington to investigate the series of ritualistic murders going on there. The opening hours are a slow burn, with there only being a handful of combat encounters, but the game does an excellent job of building tension until finally it all kicks off. Saga's story revolves around solving the mystery of these murders being committed by the Cult of the Tree. She has the ability to access her mind place, a mental image of her field office in which she can link together clues to solve cases, as well as the ability to profile subjects and see the situation from their eyes to reveal the truth of what happened. Finding clues and placing them on the caseboard made me invested in the narrative, as while there were only one place each clue could go, trying to deduce its location on my own allowed me to feel like I was playing a part in solving the case, not that it was just being solved for me. After retracing the steps of the most recent victim leading up to his death, FBI Special Agent Robert Nightingale, Saga and Casey find a page of a typewritten manuscript that describes the events surrounding Nightingale's murder before it happened. Eventually, you're able to play as the titular Alan Wake, a washed up author trying to escape an alternate dimension known as the Dark Place, where he's been trapped since the end of the first game. After a while, you unlock the ability to switch between two characters pretty much whenever you want. The combat in Alan Wake 2 is not on the level of Resident Evil 4 Remake, but I still had a great time with it. There's a satisfying loop to the combat, where you have to remove the darkness surrounding enemies with your flashlight before being able to shoot them. In Alan's sections, some of the shadow enemies would attack you while others were just apparitions, and that constantly kept me guessing which was which and kept those sequences tense. The different environments in this game were extremely detailed and well fleshed out. Saga's journey takes her to College and Lake, Bright Falls, and the neighboring town of Watery. I loved walking around Bright Falls as the locals prepared for their annual Deer Fest, and the Coffee World theme park in Watery was genuinely unsettling to navigate through, with the music of the rides on constant loops and the blank expression of coffee-themed mascots staring me down. Alan's journey finds him in the Dark Place, a supernatural dimension that has taken the shape of New York City. Each location was so meticulously designed, and I felt compelled to explore, to discover hidden clues and tidbits of lore, to try and unravel what was going on. From an art design perspective, Alan Wake 2 is a masterclass, specifically in its implementation of full motion video. This game seamlessly weaves in live action elements into the gameplay and narrative moments, creating such a unique visual experience in a way that I've never seen done in a game before. This approach not only enhanced the visual design of Alan Wake 2, but also blurred the lines between reality and fiction, adding an extra layer of intrigue intrigue to the overall experience. Remedy has historically used full motion video in their games, and I think after years of commitment to pushing the boundaries and deepening the relationship between design and technology and storytelling, they have perfected it with Alan Wake 2, setting it apart as a groundbreaking work of art. Moving on to the narrative itself, Alan Wake 2 is one of the best written stories I've experienced. I was so invested in Saga and Alan and Casey, and I loved how twisted and mind-bending the story was. The narrative bends and weaves back onto itself many times over to the point where it was confusing and made sense at the same time. Since you have the ability to switch between Saga and Alan at will, there are a multitude of different permutations of how any given person could experience the story, but the game is so well written that I can almost guarantee that any of those permutations would work. Both playable characters offer unique perspectives on the unfolding events as the narrative twists and turns. Neither fully understands what is going on, and they need to communicate with each other to get a full grasp on what the heck is going on. Aside from Garl in Sea of Stars, Saga Anderson is my favorite character from anything I played last year. I was so invested in her story, and as the horrors began to get more and more personal for her, the way she reacts and changes as a character were incredibly done. Music plays a crucial role in Alan Wake 2, elevating the overall experience by seamlessly blending it into the narrative. Each song in the game is based on a different poem written by Sam Lake, the game's director, writer, and the face and body of Alex Casey in the game itself. The songs in Alan Wake 2 enhance the emotional impact of key moments, as they usually play at the end of a chapter when tensions are high or things are uncertain. The soundtrack serves as a storytelling device, and at moments in the game, music is physically there as a narrative device, one of which led to mine and many others' favorite gaming moment of 2023. Alan Wake 2 is not just horrors, however. This game is so full of moments of charm and comedy that do so much to help remind the player that these are people dealing with these horrifying situations, and that they are expressing a range of emotions to either calm down or cope with the horrors that they are facing. I know for a fact that what I've said here about Alan Wake 2 is nowhere near going to do this game justice, but to talk too much about this game is to spoil this game. So if you want to experience it for yourself, I really recommend you do, because this game will be like nothing that you have ever seen before, and I guarantee you will enjoy it, unless you don't like horror, that is. Alan Wake 2 is more than just a game, it's a testament to the heights that interactive storytelling can reach. Every element of this game contributes to the narrative in one way or another. Everything is so intentional, and you can feel the guiding hand of Sam Lake placing every note, puzzle, and tidbit of lore. This game is truly phenomenal, and I know that it will continue to resonate with me for years to come, and I just love it so much, and that is why Alan Wake 2 is my game of the year for 2023. We have finally reached the end of my best of 2023 video. I hope that maybe you found a game on one of my lists that you'd like to try out for yourself. If you did, or if there's a game that I missed from my list that you think I should try out, let me know in the comments. Another thing you can let me know in the comments is your personal favorite games of 2023, or your personal most anticipated games of 2024. I'd love to hear them. Last year was a weird one for the gaming industry, and at the time of me writing this, in terms of layoffs, 2024 is shaping up to be much worse. But 2023 was filled with incredible releases that gave so much joy and happiness to so many, and this coming year has some heavy hitters of its own. So I want to just end this video by saying how much I appreciate all the developers who work tirelessly to make the games that we all love to play. I see your passion coming through when I play your games, and I know that you care deeply about the work that you do. Hopefully executives and higher ups learn to do the same. Thanks again for watching, and here's hoping 2024 is better and brighter than ever before.